Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Water Research Foundation and SWAN webcast on beginning your digital transformation journey. We're really excited to share with you all and glad that you could be here today. My name is Sydney Samples. I'm a research program manager at the Water Research Foundation, and today I will be moderating our webcast. So today, for a brief overview of what we're going to be covering, I'm going to start with some housekeeping and go over a WRF introduction. I'll pass it off to Maddie at SWAN for a SWAN introduction. Then we're going to dive right into our panel and then have some Q&A at the end for you all. So for housekeeping, throughout the session, you can type your questions in the box below the presentation on your screen. We'll take questions in the last 10 to 15 minutes of the presentation. We'll answer as many questions as time permits. If your question is specifically related to one panelist in particular, please indicate that when you ask your question. The slides and a recording of the webcast will be available on WRF's main website after today. You can also download the slides now. A certification of completion will be automatically generated after the webcast, and any questions related to this should go to Michelle Suazo. Lastly, there's a quick survey that will ask for you to fill out at the very end, and we thank you for helping us improve our webcasts. So with that, a brief introduction, if this is your first WRF webcast. The Water Research Foundation is a subscriber-based nonprofit and a leading research organization advancing the science of One Water. Our mission is to help our subscribers discover opportunities and solve problems so that they can meet all of the evolving needs of their communities. How do we do this, you might ask? Well, we're a research organization, so we primarily fund and manage municipal water research. As part of that, we really work on building connections within the water sector, convening experts and sector representatives to collaborate on all of our research. We work on accelerating the adoption of innovation in the sector, and also, like presentations like this, we want to disseminate our research, disseminate the results of subscribers and other water professionals who are doing really great work. Here's kind of a brief overview of the types of work that we do at WRF. We have 5 different themes and 16 different subtopics, and what you'll notice is that digital transformations or intelligent water systems don't fit nicely into any of our 16 subtopics. It really fits at the bottom where you see our cross-cutting issues. And why this is important is that you're going to see research on digital transformation and intelligent water systems in all of our subtopics. Right now, we've got projects on treatment and optimization, workforce management, energy intensification that all really bridge that digital divide. So this is how WRF handles digital transformation and how we like to view this topic. And lastly, I wanted to provide you an opportunity to get engaged in our research. So Project 5189, quantifying the impact of AI, machine learning-based approaches to utility performance, they're currently conducting a survey to learn about all of the really awesome work that you're all doing out there. So if you have an AI or machine initiative at your organization, please take a moment and scan this QR code. This is going to bring up the survey. We ask that after this webcast, because we don't want to distract your attention, but afterwards that you fill this out and tell us about the really great work that you're doing. We'd love to include you in the project. And so with that, I will pass it on to Maddie Zimmerman with SWAN to share a little bit about the work that they're doing.
Thanks, Sydney. I'm Maddie Zimmerman, the Americas Manager at SWAN. For those of you who aren't familiar with SWAN, SWAN is the global hub for accelerating smart water networks worldwide. We focus on increasing the adoption of data-driven solutions for stormwater, wastewater, and drinking water. And we do this by connecting various players within the smart water industry, including water utilities, solution providers, and other industry experts. And together we collaborate, we share knowledge, solutions, and information related to smart water, and we develop tools, white papers, and guides for our members as well. And we do this through working in various regional alliances and collaborative work groups. The Americas Alliance is our largest group, and we also have other alliances throughout the world. Some of our collaborative work groups include the Digital Twin Work Group, a young professional group, and then energy efficiency, AI, data as a service, and smart metering are some of our other popular groups. And they all follow similar formats of providing opportunities for knowledge sharing and education while also producing different outputs. So for example, the Americas Alliance has 3 major pillars. The first one is education, which focuses on people, processes, and technologies. And we put on monthly calls or webinars similar to this webcast, where we dive into different topics surrounding smart water. So we do topics related to building robust digital architecture, CSO monitoring, ensuring reliable data via automation, and more. The second pillar is engagement. We say many members, one flock. And so we do quarterly calls for all of our members to join and share what their updates are. Perhaps they put out a new call for an RFP. They've recently published a report. Maybe they're deploying a new solution and want to share their unexpected outcomes with the rest of the group. So it's a really great way to network virtually and learn from other SWAN members. And our final pillar is execution. And so we do annual research projects to put out tools and white papers for our members. This year, we're focusing on enhancing utility operations through IT-OT collaboration. And we really started this project by thinking about the why, the what, the who, and the how of IT-OT convergence. And so now we're really looking to hear from you all. So if you, whether you're a utility, a solution provider, a consultant, and you've started, either you're beginning your journey of IT-OT convergence, or you've been doing it for 10 years, we'd love to hear your story and learn more about how your organization has envisioned it. So feel free to scan that QR code. Right now, it is open to SWAN members, and we'd love to hear how your IT-OT journey has gone. So that's, and if you have any questions about SWAN or this research project, feel free to reach out to me. Thank you, Sydney. I'll pass it back to you.
Thanks, Maddie, and great to hear about all the great work you're doing at SWAN. With that, I'd like to introduce our panelists, what you all came here to hear. So we have 4 great panelists from 3 different utilities. So we've got Nitin Joshi, the Environmental and Operations Technology Manager at the City of Salem. We've got Devin Doring, the Technical Services Supervisor in the Public Works Department, also at the City of Salem. We've got Matt Magruder, the Environmental Research Manager at Milwaukee Metropolitan Sewer District. We've got Wendy Kemp, the Director of Water and Wastewater Infrastructure Asset Management at the Regional Municipality of York. So with that, we will get started with our first question. I invite all of the panelists to join. So we're going to send this first question to Nitin and have Devin on board right after. Could you please introduce yourself and briefly tell us about your digital transformation journey?
Sure, Sydney. I spent most of my career in public service. In fact, as an environmental, in the environmental field, I've been in Oregon for 28 years, and prior to that, in California for 3. And I worked in local, county, state government for various different capacities during that time. And presently, I work for the City of Salem as the Environmental and Operations Technology Manager, like you mentioned. And I've been with the city for the last 22 years. So just to give you a background. Talking about basically the journey, do you want me to go with that part too, as to how?
That'd be great.
Okay. As you said, basically it's a journey. It's something that we have all been going through right along from when we started in the MS-DOS days on the computer to all the way to doing our work on a phone. In fact, it's gone to the point where basically I can do my work from pretty much anywhere, millions of miles away, at least thousands of miles away, and be able to track it in real time and make actual decisions using just a phone. So that's how far we have come. But, the bottom line is all that can only be achieved with lots of time and money spent and all the things that have happened and taken place even before I started my journey with the city. And it's come on those shoulders that I sit on. And basically, I feel that it would be wrong to say it's just my journey. It's all of us going through that. So lots of people to thank, even in my organization. Everyone wants to make sure that all the information that we get today is live, is real time. We take everything what we need. We want it now at our fingertips. And so with the new regulations and new requirements coming, there's always more to do. Sometimes it's lead that we are tracking. Sometimes it's PFAS, and sometimes it's the harmful algal blooms. So all those things require that we actually have a good digital infrastructure first before we can talk about real-time information that we can get. And so that's the part which I think we are working towards, and we are trying to create actionable intelligence at the end of the day. So that I would like to stop at that for now.
Thanks, Devin. You're up.
Yeah, hi everyone. My name is Devin Doring. Again, I'm the Technical Services Supervisor here at the City of Salem. I actually work for Nitin, who just introduced himself. Largely my role in the organization is essentially that, like helping lead the digital transformation of our organization in the very sense, like in the weeds of it. How do you actually implement the architecture, the systems, the data? So this is really real for me. I live it every day. I've been with the City of Salem 12 years now. I've always had sort of a technical position. And when I think about digital transformation and what I've seen at the city over the last decade, or what we've really had to grapple with, is what a lot of other organizations grapple with. But what I really thought about when you asked the question was the biggest thing that we've grappled with, or what I've seen, is this real shift from going from software and data and systems that reside on, people's personal computers, right? Working off the C drive now to everything is web-based and interconnected and real time. And that's a huge fundamental shift that like the whole world is still dealing with, right? Like going from, emailing spreadsheets to like seeing like real data and everyone's working off of one copy. And so that kind of shift in just the underlying landscape of technology systems and just how we work in general, like directly influences a digital transformation journey. So, yeah.
And later we're going to come back to that, because I think the cybersecurity and making sure that it's safe when you're in that cloud environment is something that everyone wants to hear about. So I'd love to get into that in a little bit, but we'll go to Wendy next.
Hi, everyone. So I'm happy to be here to talk about York Region. It's the municipality that's located just to the north of Toronto in Canada. And we serve about 1.2 million residents and a very fast-growing municipality with a goal to achieve almost double that in the next 20 to 30 years in terms of population. I'm a hydrogeologist by training, so lots of experience working with data to help solve very complex problems using visualization tools to try to understand it better. And throughout our journey, I've been at the region for now 21 years, so have gone through the organization and worked in operations as well as water resources, and now as the director for infrastructure asset management. And I would say we've gone through quite a journey, and we still continue, as Nitin said, like this doesn't end. It's still a road and a path that we are. There's some really great technology out there that we've discovered that really helps us, but what we've really discovered is if you try to build technology on a broken process, you just end up with broken technology. So we have spent a lot of effort looking at how are we organized to be a digital utility, and organically the organization sort of had staffed up. Every little team would have, say, their GIS expert or someone who was really good at, AI or something related to that. And what we realized was really we need to centralize and create centers of excellence. And I think by focusing on the people and then looking at the process and ensuring that it's not completely broken, and maybe we're trying to build technology for a process that doesn't even make sense anymore, and then looking at the technical or technology as a solution has been quite a journey for the York region. So and I'm not going to say we've solved it yet. We're still really working at it. It's been a journey, and we continue along it.
Thanks, Wendy. Great to hear. Excited to learn more and go deeper into that. But we'll go to Matt. Matt next.
Yeah, thank you. So, hey, everybody, Matt Magruder, Environmental Research Manager with Milwaukee Metropolitan Stewardship District. Thanks for having me with you today. I serve, again, as the organization's Environmental Research Manager, but I also moonlight as our Digital Transformation Framework Development Lead. Digital transformation for MMSD, it's something that we've done ad hoc for many years, and I would argue probably everybody on the call could say that, right? But what's new for us is getting really strategic, intentional, and really facilitating the change management to develop a culture that is rooted in continuous improvement and actively seeks advanced data solutions is uncharted territory for MMSD. So in our journey, we're looking to, again, develop that culture, and really we're trying to do it with the intent that we are going to develop solutions that support real-time decision-making at our organization that improves outcome and generates value, not just doing it because it's cool. And so for us, from the beginning, it was really kind of apparent that there was a lack of consensus and understanding around digital transformation. So we started with pulling together a phased approach that includes everything from learning and ideation around digital transformation to define really what it means to us, to unpacking where we're currently at, where we want to be, and ultimately developing a prioritized framework for our organization. So I'll kind of pause there, and then if there's any questions later on, I'll happily unpack that for folks.
Thanks, Matt. That was a great transition to kind of where we're going next. And we're going to start with Wendy and Matt, just because of where your presentation was going, or your discussion was going. But you talked about the journey and kind of these first steps that you were needing to figure out. And so could you elaborate more on the first steps that you took in? Was it a leap of faith, or did everyone get on board? Did everyone say this is the right path? What type of conversation was that from the start? And so we'll start with Wendy.
It definitely was a conversation starting at the senior management level, really driven from the commissioner and down to the director level at first, to really understand what it is that we wanted to achieve and what does a digital utility really look like. And from there, we created a strategy with the support of a consultant, and then looked at prioritization, like a blueprint for how do you drive some of these outcomes. And clearly one of the first ones was we needed to bring the people together who are doing like work so that they could leverage one another and not create these pockets within the organization that are doing exceptional work, but could leverage and help others to advance their work. And then, really looking, we often said it was the next 10 feet of the strategy, because really, as you work through this, some of the things you don't know or realize once you get into it is trying to have, and I think Matt spoke to this change management sort of perspective, and making sure you maintain momentum and not actually having like the ultimate solution is X. It's more about getting through the next 10 feet and really looking for champions who really understand the business, who understand the business questions that need to be answered, and then thinking about, okay, well, how do we get there with the data? Because we have lots of data. We have so much data, it's almost inefficient in its own way. So really trying to zoom in on the things that really need to be solved for the business. So yeah, I'll pass it off to Matt.
Yeah, thank you, Wendy. And So for us, I wouldn't say that I can really distill it down to one single step, but I think a couple bullets on some steps that we kind of did in parallel to get rolling on our digital transformation journey. Started with finding an executive champion within the organization. It's a fantastic way to really ultimately have legitimacy when you get people at the table to talk about it, right? Somebody who has the authority to make things happen. So I found that for my organization, as well as I found my allies, and equally as important, my skeptics that are critical to success in digital transformation, right? There's old adage, keep your friends close and your enemies closer. They're not really enemies, but they're good people to have in the room. They have a diversity of thought and perspective, which is important to have at the table. So when we got everybody to the table, it's really important to practice active listening with my stakeholders, but yet facilitating and asking impactful questions like, what's important to you? These are simple questions, but impactful. What's important to you? What keeps you up? What would you like to achieve with digital transformation? What must I do to support you and to earn your support for digital transformation? What are your biggest fears around digital transformation? And then based off of that feedback, we continued to meet and really defined a vision for our effort for going after a digital transformation framework development. And we defined what success looks like for our organization, and we placed boundaries on it. And for us right now, we're looking at the confines of our collection system and water resource recovery facility. So it's not fully built out to an enterprise-wide digital transformation strategy. We're trying to start somewhere and develop some focus. And really, at the end of the day, we're looking to reduce costs and eliminate waste in our operations, improve reliability and reduce the risk of failure for our customers, improve performance, and increase innovation for our organization. So that's kind of, the first steps we took to get us moving in the right direction.
Thanks, Matt. Devin, what's your perspective?
Yeah, I'll stay in my lane. I'm more the boots on the ground, and I'll let Nitin handle more the strategy and that stuff. But like for me in the world that I live, I'm a kind of a data person. And it's really hard to do digital transformation if you don't have digital data. And so I spend a lot of time thinking about, the associated workflows or the things that people want to do. And so, how do you fundamentally digitize this? It will always come back to the data and the workflows that that data comes from. And so I've spent a lot of time over my my time at the city reinventing workflows, a lot of time in like procurement spaces, like this is how we used to get data and this is now how we get it. So working with procurement people, different data sources, and then different systems to support those data. Data comes in all kinds of different flavors and sizes and shapes, and you need the appropriate underlying architecture, right, to house that data. And so from a practical point of view with kind of digital transformation, I think it's always kind of going to come back to the workflows and the data has been mentioned before. And then you think about what are the actual systems to support those things. And so that's what I think is kind of the first step. If you don't have the data, you got nothing else. So
thanks. Nitin, do you want to jump in?
Yeah, sure. One thing to remember is Salem is not as huge as the other two communities that we are standing with today. We are much smaller. We are a community of 175,000 people population. At the most, we impact about the regional urban area of about 250,000. So much smaller in comparison with some of the folks right here, but I would say we still consider ourselves a well-managed community, well-managed organization. One of the things that Wendy mentioned, and so did Devin, is the fact that we are truly data rich. So we as a local government, that is one thing we can guarantee. We have lots of data. And so the data which we have to make sure that it's first step is it's good data. And then it's been generally my philosophy as well as Devin and generally even the organization's philosophy, we want to be transparent with our data. We want to make sure that we have always cared for our residents, but we haven't been able to share all the stuff that we have with our residents. So digitization, in a way, basically helps us go there much quicker, faster, to have a good avenue to share what we already see on the inside as internal stakeholders. How can we include that external stakeholders in the process of being able to visualize all the things that we know? And then to add to that, I would say aging infrastructure is a common situation that we have all, within our communities. But to add to that, we also have aging workforce. And so we have to make sure that we can kind of create systems which will enable us to do that, all the things that we used to do with people who stayed around for 30, 40 years, in our communities working, and we were using their historical knowledge. How do we go ahead and try to create the next systems which will talk to us, which will help guide the next workforce? And that's what we have been working towards. And as a personal aha moment, I would I would like to reflect on the fact that one of the groups that I took on in 2010 was environmental services. And while the group was responsible for all the regulatory side of things, managing data, reporting, industrial, compliance, there was one person within the group who just had taken on themselves the task of being the data administrator. And organically, it had grown to be the responsibility of the person. And then when it came to be the time that they were going to retire, it was the time when we had to question the fact, oh my God, there is a single point of failure. Nobody else actually knows what this person has been doing and actually has managed the systems. And so that, to me, required us to talk with IT, create a system which would be able to be managed by more than one person, have that inclusive nature of where do we want to go with this? How do we make this data much more relevant and transparent? And that was kind of the aha moment to say, okay, where else can I apply this logic? Where is our single point of failures? And how do we go about making sure that we never come across this situation again? So that was, in my opinion, where I started looking at, where can we try to help ourselves to grow and move in the direction what Devin also talked about.
Thanks, Nitin. That's a great transition to our next area of focus, which is going to be on challenges. So in a time you mentioned limited budgets, we've got aging infrastructure. Devin mentioned earlier kind of that cybersecurity and changing how you're operating. How do you overcome those hurdles of those that say we've got physical infrastructure that we need to prioritize, or is this even safe? So kind of what were the biggest obstacles that you had, and how did you overcome them? And so this question, let's start with Devin.
Yeah, there's always obstacles. I would say, in today's landscape and the technology, the resources, just the sheer knowledge that is available, it's more of a question of will than a question of how to do it. I mean, you can do all this stuff digitally and be completely secure. It's just a process of figuring out how to do that. And then it's the real hard work of convincing, your skeptics that is the case. But the digital landscape, gets a lot of bad press whenever anything goes wrong, and really no press when it works perfectly. And so I would say, don't focus so much on what you see in the newspapers. Because in the large part, it does work, and works very, very well. The specific question of why you should focus on, the digital when you have physical, I kind of think that's a false dichotomy. I don't really think of them as two different things. I think of them really as in the same pot. I am caring for my physical infrastructure when I am paying attention to my digital infrastructure, because the way I manage my physical infrastructure is through its digital footprint. And the way the world has figured out how to transfer knowledge the most efficiently from one generation to the next is through digital systems. And so I really see it as a continuity of service, right? Like you could, I guess, run your system and just, relying on your workforce that have been there 30 years and not document anything that they know in some sort of physical repository of knowledge. But then what do you do when they retire, right? You're gonna hope and pray that the guy that you hired right behind him is gonna know, what your seasoned professionals have accumulated over 30 or 40 years. Like it's a recipe for disaster, right? So you gotta store this knowledge base somehow. And that's why I think digital transformation is so important, and why I think it's a false dichotomy to say, I'm only going to focus on the physical, the digital, that's not important. So
I really love that answer, and think that's a great way to kind of frame the conversation that utilities need to have when they're really starting their transformation journey. Let's hear from Matt next.
Yeah, and I'd just like to say, Devin, I thought that was a fantastic response. Kudos for articulating that so cleanly. I personally view data too as an asset and an opportunity when it's done correctly. Otherwise, you spend a lot of time and effort collecting, storing, managing data, but you could be data rich and information poor. So trying to do data intentionally and do it right, defining ownership to the data domains and getting that data lifecycle right is so important. And it allows us to improve our organizational efficiency and decision making when we do it intentionally and correctly. It's really kind of the medium that we use to tell stories, data in the engineering world, to describe performance. And to the extent that we can harness our data and leverage new analytical tools for analysis and help visualize and tell that story in near real time, we have opportunities to shift from more of a reactive to a proactive stance when it comes to managing our physical assets. So like Devin said, they're totally intertwined, and that's kind of where I'll stop to allow our other panelists to chime in on it.
Thanks, Matt. Nitin, you're up next for your thoughts.
Literally Matt's stealing words that would have come out from my mouth too. But building on the same thing, yes, absolutely. For visualizing, for real time, for information that we want to have actionable intelligence for, we need good data. And that's probably one of the most important things. So how do you make sure that you invest in the right systems? Like how do you track what kind of asset management system are you investing in? How do you visualize it? So do you have something which can be combined with GIS world? Is that a good partner that you can basically rely on? Something we have CityWorks, and we combine it with GIS system to go ahead and make sure. But then we also want to visualize other things. So how do you make sure that you create a funnel, a filter of sorts to have everything be served up through a platform which is easy enough for anyone, technical or the most common denominator, or even the highest authority within your organization, to be able to see and communicate with you without feeling like they have to know it all. And so that's the part which is very important when we look at, why do we want to go digital? How do we want to have the physical stuff be available digital so that any repairs, maintenance, tracking of what's going on, history on any kind of equipment or any of our assets are easy to look at. Things are built in such a way that they talk to you when it's time for looking at them. They tell you, so that we are not being reactive, like what Matt said, we are being proactive about it.
That's great, Nitin. Proactivity and staying ahead of what's the challenges that were going to be occurring are really important, and put utilities at a really great place. Wendy, let's have you wrap up this question.
Well, it's it's a really good lead up from all three speakers. So I think when you prioritize digitization, you end up finding efficiencies that actually free up money for the physical assets. So even at the front line, everybody has a cell phone. Everyone has comfort using a cell phone to a large extent, and having to do paper checklists are things that are no longer things acceptable, really, and it's so much more efficient to enter that information one time going into a system that can be utilized by a variety of different groups who are all looking at the system from a different perspective. So I think doing digital transformation on the side of your desk really isn't good either. So you do need somebody to be the champion, to be able to lead the strategic work forward and to really prioritize. And Nitin stepped on this with the enterprise system that they use, and same with us. Everyone was sort of focusing on all these different little tools to be used, but really our work management system needed the focus and the prioritization, and to get the work out so that they could pull the information back in a digital form and then be utilized by all these different groups. So it really does help manage the system better when you have all of these pieces sort of working together. So ultimately at the end of the day, it helps you with the money issue in terms of trying to manage the physical assets. So that's where I would sort of go.
That's really great. And I think just a takeaway from all four of you is that, well, this is posed as an obstacle and you might be taking away from other things. What I've learned, what I've taken away is that really it's an optimization opportunity and can really actually free up resources for your physical assets. So it's a win-win on both. That's really great. I want to remind the audience before we go to our next question, because I still do have a couple left, but please submit your questions to the panelists. I'd love to hear what questions you have for them. But we still have a few more. So this next one's going to go to Matt to start. And it's really when you're starting your journey, we've talked a lot about the physical aspect side, the data side, but thinking about the employees and the customers, was customer employee satisfaction and experience a component of going digital when you first started?
Yeah, that's a good question. So definitely employee satisfaction, and to the extent that we can start to tease out customer satisfaction, there's huge opportunities to improve transparency through data and digital tools. And we're starting to do that right now. We're starting to have, and I think it starts to address on one of the comments that came in from the audience too. It's, the ability to in real time be connected to customers, right? Like when we're about to experience and have forecasted an intense rainstorm, we can issue water drop alerts to try to tell people to help conserve and support us to manage water where it falls, using green infrastructure, not running dishwashers, things of that nature, trying to use digital tools to connect with folks and building out these intuitive and accessible platforms for people to be engaged with us. All these things do come with challenge though, right? We compete for a lot of resources in our organizations, and whenever we move and try to do something in the digital space, we have to understand that it needs to have a direct benefit that ties back to our mission of our organization without sacrificing security too when we introduce these new types of tools and engagement techniques. By far the most difficult steps for us for this project were this initiative was to overcome the fear of change and exploring the unknown. It's not really something that we've done before intentionally. So there was some instant pushback from skeptics in the room. Like, if we hadn't had to do it before, then why do we have to do this now? But getting right and intentional with data, it's never going to get easier than it is today because of the rate that we accumulate data. So it's in your best interest to start sooner than later to tackle data issues and things of that nature. So hopefully that wasn't too circular of an answer, but I know it kind of covered a few different areas on the customer aspect, the employee aspect, and I think I'll also dial back in on the employee satisfaction side of things. We're look to do things to improve efficiencies within the organization, right? So it's there to help people out. It's not occurring because we're trying to eliminate people. And that was a big, fear on the onset of the DT journey for us. So.
Matt. That's a great perspective, and really appreciate you kind of diving into all three of those aspects. Let's now pass it to Nitin to provide his perspective.
Well, to think about from the customer standpoint, you have your internal customers and you have your external ones. The internal ones, in my opinion, the ones who are going to actually use your system day in, day out, they are the ones which are very important. Given the fact, first and foremost, if you don't develop things which will help make their job easier, you fail right off the bat. In fact, they are going to be the harsh critics at all times, saying you built something which is not workable, not helpful. You didn't actually meet the purpose and the need for what they were asking you to help them with. So that's, in my opinion. And then for the external stakeholders, it's important that you keep focus on what problem you're trying to solve. For example, if it's a water crisis, a situation where basically you have to inform your customers about a boiled water alert, for example, you need to be able to have a selected group be identified. How do you reach to them as quickly as you can? It's not that time of the time of the systems when we could rely on the fact, oh, you just put out a newspaper alert, or you could put something which would get to the customer tomorrow. They want information right now as it's happening. And how do you make that happen so that they can take adequate precautions for themselves? And those are the things which I think are something that you have to think about when you're talking about a functional asset management system. And that's the part which it's tough for sometimes when roadblocks where people don't realize, okay, well, we had this old system before. We put so much money into it. How can we just go ahead and let that one go and start all over again? And so to get beyond that immediate roadblock of the sunken cost in the older system that you have to accept to be able to make that change, or basically make sure that you have a buy-in from your management about the change and its worth, basically how it's going to make a difference, or just don't go out and try to find the first shiny thing out there and try to invest in that, and try to make sure you talk to people, you explore, you do your research, you try to pilot the system first. And those are things which you have to do before you can go ahead and invest in something. So I think customer satisfaction, number one, there's no question about it. If you can't get there, you failed right off the bat.
Thanks, Nitin, and really appreciate you talking a little bit about the paradox of choice. And just there are so many digital technologies out there and solution providers, and it's really important that you find the right one for your organization because the context that everyone's working in is different. Let's pass this now to Wendy.
So in my introduction, I think I mentioned that we are an upper tier municipality, so we provide drinking water to our lower municipalities. We have 9 within York Region, and so a lot of our digital transformation has been focused internally in terms of how do we really drive data for our uses and our decision making, which ultimately supports the needs for our local municipalities. But we have really spent a lot of time. So there was lots of, as I said, lots of projects underway, lots of priorities, and essentially skinning everybody really thinly instead of trying to focus and prioritize on the wins that we know we needed that would solve multiple problems within the organization. So really zoomed in on essentially 4 really critical projects so that things would be more digital and the data would be more readily available for multiple uses, including our customers, our local municipalities who ultimately serve our residents. We really managed internal expectations about this MVP, so the minimal viable product. So we're trying to get really good at the basics, really deliver something that can be utilized quickly and iteratively over time, as opposed to trying to solve the problem over a 5-10 year project, which never really satisfies anybody. So really working directly with the business, and I think that's why the focus on business process was so critical in our people, process, and then technology is when you start to look at the process and you see these like crossover handovers, and you build a system that's going to deal with that crossover and inefficiency, you realize, wait a second, the business process doesn't make any sense. Why are we seeing this crossover, and can we make it more efficient? I think that's been one of the big things that we've discovered in terms of, keeping our staff engaged and motivated to be thinking about digital solutions and how we could make things and do things easier with less effort. The one thing I do want to touch on is the change management challenge. And so there's an ever-changing environment, especially in water, wastewater, but I know everybody can relate to this. And your organization changes, people retire, people leave, people get promoted. We've lost some of our momentum over time, and trying to maintain that is so very important. You may have a really great champion at the top of your transformation, and it's really when you lose that champion, it's like, how do you backfill that? And it really is about building the culture beneath, so that there is still that momentum that continues through time. So I think that kind of relates to the satisfaction. If everybody understands what we're trying to achieve together and actually all have the same knowledge base in terms of what is digital transformation, then you keep that momentum moving forward, and you actually have a better and higher satisfaction level.
Wrapping this one up, Devin.
I think a lot has been said. I don't know how much more I can add to it. I know there's a lot of questions waiting. But I'll just add, I think, the original question was sort of like some of the roadblocks and, how important is customer satisfaction? And I think it's really huge. I mean, we have a practical example in the city where we implemented a new asset management system. It was terrible. It was unusable. People couldn't figure it out. And at the end of the day, it failed because people refused to use it. So how important is it? It's pretty doggone important. You really have to ensure that the technology choices, match what the customer needs to do their jobs. Yes, there's going to be change management involved, but making sure the tools are usable is really important. Otherwise, there's really no point in the project if your staff can't figure it out, or if the business drivers are not being met. So yeah, I'll leave it at that.
Thank you. So we're going to move to audience questions. We've got a lot of really great ones coming in. I'm going to send the first one to Matt, and then we'll have others join in who have an answer. But let's talk about benchmarking and measuring success. So is benchmarking data a part of what you're doing? And on the opposite end, how do you measure if what you're implementing is successful?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a couple of facets of benchmarking that we're doing. One is just kind of defining our current state. So, the technologies, the process, staffing, position, technologies, things of that nature, and documenting those. Also, in terms of like developing, you need to benchmark and develop targets to improve for various initiatives, so that you're being meaningful and intentional with your deployment, your goal deployment for whatever optimization you're trying to solve. So it could be something like streamlining a business process cycle time, the time it takes for something to get to a next step, cutting it down from, maybe 2 days to, 2 hours, or which is one kind of thing we're working on with one digital optimization right now around streamlining reviews of certain types of proposal ideas. Also, things from like measuring, your baseline consumption use for consumables at the plants, things of that nature. You have to define, where you're starting from to know, what you've actually achieved when you get to done.
Thanks, Matt. Does anyone else want to tackle this question, or we can move on to the next one?
I would just chime in to say that it is difficult. There is this need to sort of understand, I think, the time savings piece, but also just how are you tracking on the overall strategy, and is that a count number, or are we making better type of question? So that is a really good question, and it is not an easy answer by no means.
If I might just quickly add, I would say that basically, well, purpose and need. It's very important to make sure that you have purpose and need for the project. And then if there's a clear regulatory driver with an end goal and expectation, that makes it even easier to check against that. That can itself be, are we meeting that? Are we exceeding that? And then at some point of time, the intention should always be that the regulatory requirement should not be the reason why you're doing it. It's just being met on the side while you continue to improve the program.
Thanks. We're going to go to Wendy for the next question. A little bit more back to the change management. So a momentum challenge seems to pop up often, especially if digital transformation is a top-down initiative. Can you talk more about the change management culture change approach to help the mindset of continuous improvement stick at all levels of a utility or organization?
Yeah, it's such a tricky area, change management, and to maintain the momentum. I sort of touched on this a little bit. Was, one of the early days in our first discussions about the strategy was making sure everyone was on the same knowledge level of digital transformation, and that was getting really good at the basics. So does everybody know how to use GIS? Does everybody know how to use the tools that have been built that will help them with their job? And I think that gets people really, really excited. And I'm going to say, I have a staff member on my team who, on the side of his desk, literally was so tired of everyone asking him, how many kilometers do we have? How many pieces of whatever equipment we have? And, he created these dashboards and he linked everything together, and it was just out of his own drive and interest and understanding the business questions that were coming to him that he created this dashboard that is a phenomenal use. And I'm going to tell you, it's used across all from the engineering, from the capital to the operations side. It just helps bring that information all together. And so there are champions within the organization. They're not always at the top. It's about creating that opportunity for them to come and rise to the top. And really, I think that keeps your momentum going when you've really built it from the ground up. And yeah, it can be, the champion can be at the top, but if you're not building the culture beneath, it's just going to stop. So that's really where we're at. And we do have a group that does look at change management, because as soon as you change a process, the technology might need to change. So then how do you deal with that? So there is a group that sort of focuses on that. But I would say from a culture perspective, it's about building it from the ground up.
Thanks. This next question we're going to send to Devin and Nitin, kind of going back to the basics, but when you're trying to nail down what should be the very first thing that you get started in your digital transformation, what types of questions should you be asking yourself to get you started? Maybe Devin, we'll start with you and then have Nitin follow.
Go for it.
Yeah, I really think about risk, and I think utilities in general, we're very risk averse people and groups by nature. And I've really seen an effective way to help you narrow down where you should start is to focus where you see the most risk. As an example, what we sort of mentioned before, if you've got, the one guy that knows everything there is to know about your pump stations and he's retiring in a year, you should be thinking, I should focus to mitigate that risk by, documenting what he knows in some kind of system, having him sit down with a GIS professional, pulling out some of that information into some sort of digital format. That's an example of that. if you see risk in like, you know, there's a lag of information, right? Like we have an issue and we can't get the information to the right decision maker in time for them to make some sort of compliance report. Well, you could focus on that workflow and improve that digitally to speed up that. That I think is a really practical way to think about it. Like list your risk and rank them and use that as a priority. Like those are the things that you could focus on.
Thanks, Devin. I think that's great advice. Yeah, Nitin, sorry to interrupt. Go for it.
No, absolutely. I'm just amazed. I love the way Devin thinks, and that's what helps me do my job better. So absolutely, I think just to add to that, I would say no matter which organization you go to, you will have this problem of in the past we have always been siloed, very siloed, and the fact is, as you start breaking down those silos and trying to figure out ways to utilize information which is sitting in each of those silos to work with each other, you need to figure out what systems will help you be interoperable. So the fact is, information needs to be able to flow all the way across, and what will help you get there. And so that then you can start thinking about building systems which will work for benefiting all of them. And then you start seeing that everyone enjoys that they're talking with each other because they are all sharing the same information. And that's, I think, is an important thing, that look at the very basic as to where information lies and what you can bring together to create and how you make them talk to each other. First the information, then people.
Thanks. Our last audience question that we're going to have is going to go to Matt, talking about tools. Should you build them? Should you buy them? And if you're buying them, how do you narrow down? Because there are so many options out there.
That's a great question. And I think, honestly, it's a different answer for every entity. I think it comes down to understanding your organization and its abilities. There's definitely cost trade-offs both ways. There's resource requirements. There's security aspects. So a lot goes into play with things. And, maybe for, a larger utility that might have more people who are versed in programming languages, maybe building things and customizing things in-house is an option. And maybe it's not for a smaller entity, or maybe you're lucky and it is in the cards. Really, at the end of the day, it comes down to what's the objective you're trying to achieve and how are you most effectively going to get to it. I think is where you have to start. And, having the criteria that is embedded with the vision and the strategic objective of the organization, your organization, in that decision-making matrix, if you will, as you look at the universe of opportunities to get to that desired future state for that objective, you start to unpack and answer that question. But again, it's going to be different for every organization and every optimization as well. For us, we're trying to get away from a lot of ad hoc and one-off and trying to standardize more. So for visualization for us, for our organization, what we decided upon, which might not be the same for you, and which is totally okay, we're trying to use Microsoft Power BI for our visualization and dashboarding needs. Just one example of one particular product that we are using. It's not an endorsement for that or any kind of thing like that, but that's what we've decided is best for us.
Thanks, Matt. As we wrap up, I want to give you all 30 seconds. Any final advice that you have? Nitin, let's start with you.
Well, I would say basically it doesn't matter whether you're a big organization or a small organization. Don't be afraid. Try, test things, pilot it out, and most importantly, trust your internal teams. You'll be amazed. Give them the opportunity to expand their ideas and to say, like, here's a challenge. This is what we are trying to do. How would you go about helping us? And you'll be amazed by what they can bring to the table. Give them credit for where they deserve. Call them out. And I think that's an important part of growing yourself and your team as you step into this, new digitization process. So I would leave it at that.
Thanks. Wendy, you're up.
An exciting area to be working in, and I'm thrilled at some of the things that is produced from our team. And I really do feel that the approach for us anyway made sense. For people, focus on the people, centralize those efforts, then look at the business processes. Could they be more efficient? And then look at the technology to really drive those efficiencies and make knowledge out of the data. So yeah, that's what I would say.
Thank you. Devin?
I'll try to close it out with something practical, since that's the world I live in, boots on the ground, right? I would say in all this digital transformation, choosing systems, deciding and building something custom, pay close attention to your system integrations, right? Everyone wants data from system A to system B to system C. And I forgot where I read it, but it's like 75% of like all essentially like IT and OT development goes into system integration. So when you're procuring, when you're building, pay special attention to that area. If you do that, it'll be fine.
I think Sydney is having some problems.
Matt, do you want to go next?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Sorry, I hit the wrong button there. So I would just say, communicate often and with purpose and intent. Involve your people. They're your most valuable resource. Keep those process owners engaged from the onset, and have fun when you're going through your digital transformation journey. You got to make it your own, and it's really up to you and your organization to define what the desired future state is and what you're willing to invest into it.
With that, we want to thank you all. Thank you to our panelists. This was incredible. I hope everyone learned a lot from them. Want to thank you to the audience for sticking with us till the very end. We do have a survey that we'd love for you to take. It only takes about a minute or two, so if you could fill that out. Lastly, I just want to thank SWAN for partnering with WRF on this great webcast. So with that, thank you, everyone, and I hope you have a great rest of your day and a great weekend.
Thank you.